So I have a question for you new clinicians out there. You want to know what drives your clinical supervisor bonkers? Well, tonight we're going to talk about that because yes, you do drive us bonkers sometimes. And you know what? When I was a clinical supervisee, I drove my supervisor bonkers, and I know because she told me. So if you want to know what you're doing that's driving your clinical supervisor bonkers, tonight's episode is for you. Hey, welcome. It's Eric Nance, Dark Side of Therapy. Tonight we're going to talk about things that clinical supervisees do that drive their clinical supervisors bonkers. I think it's a fun topic, and I think it's worth looking into because we're not perfect. I wasn't perfect. I did a lot of things to drive probably every supervisor I had bonkers, but I learned some things along the way too. And so as you move into your role, you get your clinical supervisor, I'm going to give you 10 tips that you can use to have the best working relationship possible with your clinical supervisor. Number 10, do not be late to supervision. Do not be late to your scheduled supervision. This is protected time for you and your supervisor. We put a lot of effort into getting the stuff on the schedule, sticking to it. Now, we understand if there's an emergency, if you have to be late for those kinds of reasons, absolutely. But to just come in late, no. And this has happened to me, and I've scolded supervisees for this. This is protected time, and it's really your time, too, to get the most out of it. So do not be late. Number 9, coming to the meeting having nothing prepared. Now, think about this. It is not your job to structure the meeting. That's really for the clinical supervisor to do. But you need to bring some material, okay? Whether that's cases, whether it's consultation efforts, whether it's you're having a bad day and you need to process, maybe somebody got combative with you, maybe it was a peer. But you need to bring in some material, and I'll structure the rest of the meeting. Number 8, refusing to take cases that you're qualified for. Now, I've watched this a lot in the different agencies I've worked for, where a new clinician comes in and we talk about the cases that have come down the pike, and they don't want to take any of them because they don't like the case. Now, there's a huge difference between not liking the case and just not being able to take the case because you haven't been in the field long enough and it's too complex. But you don't get to just say no because you don't like the flavor of the case. That doesn't work. So be somebody that's open to taking cases. Number 7, not having boundaries. This might be the most crucial thing you learn as a new therapist. You have got to have good boundaries in your workspace, and that means saying no sometimes. And no one's going to want to hear the word no. Your scheduler isn't going to want to hear it. The biller isn't going to want to hear it. No one's going to want to hear the word no. But the quicker you can establish that boundary, the quicker it will be respected. And yes, even as a new clinician, you have every right to say no. You're not there to just make everybody happy. Number 6, making work your life. I can tell you, in my career of supervising clinical trainees, so many of them have shown me that work becomes their life. You know, stopping me in the hall, let's talk about work. Stopping me in the lunchroom, let's talk about work. Calling me on the phone, let's talk about work. I want you to have a life outside of this. I don't want the work to become your life because the work is not who you are. It's a part of who you are. So if you're sitting with me and all you're doing is talking about work every second of the day, I'm going to call you out because you need to have a life. Work is not your life. Number 5, not reporting to me dangerous situations. Now, this typically happens when a supervisee is in over his or her head. Or as George Harmon said, a case went from vanilla to rocky road. So things started out good, but then it got ugly very quickly. Do not risk not being able to handle it. Do not risk not reporting something that needed to be reported. Come to me, let's talk about it, let's solve it, let's figure it out. Don't make this about pride and don't make it worse on yourself. Number 4, being unwilling to accept feedback. If I'm working with you and you cannot accept what I have to say to you, we're not going to work together real well. And I'm not always going to say polite, kind things. And sometimes I'm going to tell you what you should have done better. I'm going to be very critical. I've had supervisees in the past who've simply said to me, this is why I did it, and I'm going to justify why I did it. Well, that's not okay, because then I'm not being validated. So be open to the constructive criticism. It's not meant to hurt you or harm you or make you feel awful. We want to help you grow, because chances are, as supervisors, we've been in the same exact position you've been in. So take our feedback. Use it. Use it to your advantage. Number 3, lying. This one's pretty self-explanatory. You don't want to lie to your clinical supervisor about anything, because it's going to come back to bite you one way or the other. And where I've seen this the most is with mistakes and not wanting to own up to mistakes, or feeling stupid that somebody didn't know something. So they make something up, and inevitably it comes back. Have no shame in not knowing. Get comfortable not knowing. Do not feel like you have to lie yourself out of a situation, because again, it's going to harm you, it's going to harm the relationship. It has to be honest, and it has to be honest from the get-go. Number 2, not following protocols. You're likely going to work for an agency after you graduate. That's just how it's going to be. And there's going to be protocols, lots of them, from how to bill, from how to attend a staff meeting. It might be virtual. These days, most things are virtual. When you can take your lunch, how your schedule works, the types of clients you get, all of these different things are part of a protocol. Go with that protocol. And again, if there's a problem, come to me. Do not take it upon yourself to go seek out the answer and try to deal with it. You need some backup, and that's what I'm there for. So come to me. Follow protocol. And number 1, the most important tip that I can say to you as a new clinical trainee is don't be arrogant. You don't know everything. And it's okay. You can't know everything. I don't know everything. Get comfortable again with not knowing. Because if you're not going to grow. And the only path to growth is by saying, I don't understand. Please teach me. I've watched a lot of arrogant young clinicians come into the field, burn out just like that, because they weren't willing to listen and put the ego aside. So put the ego aside, be a student, be a learner, and that's going to make for a great relationship and a lot of great dialogue with your clinical supervisor. So there's my 10 practical strategies, or I should say things that you can look at that you're doing that are driving your clinical supervisor bonkers. Stop doing them, work on them, talk to your clinical supervisor about them. All of these can be solved just like that. But yes, you do drive us batty sometimes, but that's okay. We still love you. So if you like this video, please hit like, and as always, please subscribe. And if you'd like to, please leave us a kind comment. This is Eric Nance with The Dark Side of Therapy. Look forward to seeing you for the next episode. Good night.